Live, live
just
from
like that.
Seattle, Hollywood. Did I say you live in Hollywood today instead of Pasadena?
Of course, we're just right
All
over
right.
there.
Yeah, I was watching an LA news clip, and the guy was out there talking about something, and he said, "Now let's go back to Hollywood, and you guys in the studio." And I just, you know what? It just took me for a second. I said, "This guy's got a little show business in him. Let's go back to Hollywood, not to the studio. Not to South LA or here or there. Let's go to Hollywood. To some of us old people, that still means something.
Well, you must have been watching Channel 11,
I can't remember if
KTTV,
I saw the guy, I would remember. I think it might have been maybe it was Channel 11 or 5.
5 and
Um,
11 are both in Hollywood. 7, 9, 2, and 4 are all in Studio City or Burbank.
yeah, but I just liked the idea that he said, "Let's go to Hollywood. Let's go back to Hollywood."
Well,
There was just something showbiz about
When
that.
KFWB was on Yucca Street in Hollywood, we would always give the temperatures and say, and in Hollywood, it's 57 degrees
Well, but
because that's where we were.
that's
But now you see they're not in Hollywood. They're on Wilshire Boulevard,
yeah,
and so they say on Wilshire Boulevard, but that could be anything. Wilshire Boulevard runs from downtown all the way to Santa Monica.
right. Could be at the beach.
Exactly.
I always liked the concept because that's what drew me to California when I was a kid was Hollywood and the beach.
Yep.
Between those two, I mean, it must have been like living in Fantasyland. It must have been
Did
when you're a little kid and you're hearing because the entire uh, um, genesis of the whole entertainment business really is at that point in the early 60s in Hollywood. You're always hearing
yep.
it. All the movies are made in Hollywood. The TV shows are coming out of Hollywood. There wasn't that many TV shows being filmed in New York. If you're into Broadway theater or the Naked City, yeah, you saw New York, but for the most part, there was not a lot of film being done in New York.
And Hollywood is not a town. Hollywood is a district of Los Angeles. If
Yeah,
if you put Hollywood, California, 90028, it'll get there because they know the difference. They know the neighborhood. But in reality, Hollywood is Los Angeles. There is a West
right,
Hollywood, which is a separate city.
right.
It has city limits, and it's not part of Los Angeles. It is its own city, but it's a small concern, and it is
But that
west of
whole
Hollywood.
yeah, between the whole Hollywood thing and the whole beach thing, the Beach Boys and
Mhm.
Jan and Dean and Surf City and all of that, between those two, to a
Don't forget
9-year
the
old kid,
Shantays. Yeah.
that was pretty cool stuff, man.
Well,
You
that was the
know, uh,
mental image. That was the mental dream that people have and still have. And in fact, there was an interesting story in the LA Times concerning the what they call the industry, and that is that it has never recovered from the two useless strikes, the SAG after strike and the Writers Guild strike, that savaged the industry, and from which it has never recovered. And the amount of people that are still out of work is alarming to the health of the industry. And those that suffered the most are the people that are the supporting actors, the crew, the carpenters, the caterers, all the ancillary businesses, people who rent out spaces for production offices, all these items and support structures for the industry that have been strong throughout the years have suffered the most and have not recovered. And there's a panic level thinking that level of employment that supports all the different elements of the industry may never return. And it was avoidable and it was regrettable, but far more damaging than anyone expected. And it remains so today.
Well, it's another nail in the coffin of California, and whether that's a perceived coffin or a real coffin or whatever it is, the reality is that there is a thought around the country and around around the world, really, that California is not a great place to do business in. That that it restricts, that it overregulates. It does this, it does that. Now, whether that's true or not, I don't know. I don't live there. It seems like there's a lot of regulation going on there, especially in the movie business. But is it more regulation than many other places,
Well,
or is it
what
the fact
other
that
places?
you know
If you want to compete
take the
with,
camera?
if you want to shoot in Los Angeles, it's everything that you need to shoot is right here. You don't have to go anywhere. You don't have to make a deal. You don't have to give tax breaks. All the various elements, excuse me, of the industry are strong in here, and it's easy to shoot here, and they do a lot of it. But other people that want to compete with California for those production dollars, which are extensive. I mean, it's billions of dollars a year being spent to produce all the elements of the television and film. If you want to compete with them, the way to do it is tax breaks. So you're ready to shoot in Los Angeles. It's going to cost you $20 million, but you can shoot it in Atlanta, Georgia, and save $5 million. You can
Right.
shoot it in Vancouver, BC, and save $7 million. You can shoot it in New York City and save money over the California costs.
Or you can shoot it in
And
Vancouver up the road here, which is
right,
heavily competitive for
very
Hollywood
competitive.
business,
And
and also
Although California says it's not competing with the same level of tax breaks to attract and hold those production companies, especially for something that's going to have several seasons, and there's an ongoing renewal of the production agreement based on the success of the show.
right, and the landscape has changed so much. I mean, the major producer, when you start to look at, is Netflix headquartered out of Hollywood? No. Is Amazon? No, they're headquartered out of here. So I mean, it's not like you have that old system where you go down. I don't know what street it was, Century Boulevard or whatever it is, and there's movie studios and there's the post production houses, and also the digitization of the medium.
Right,
Being
because it's got to
able to
stream. You can do
being
that
able to
anywhere.
do production. I mean, let's face it. You could take a Mac computer and set it up in your hotel room and edit a movie.
The rendering might take some farming, but that's all right.
Well, depending
All you need
on
is all you really need is the computers in it. You don't need a full staff anymore like you used to.
yeah. So I mean, the whole dynamic of building something, making and let's face it, what people watch has changed. There's no more 32 episode seasons or
No,
26 episode seasons. A season now is I mean, look at Saturday Night Live. It's 20 episodes. That's it.
and they're not 20 straight episodes. There's repeats sprinkled in
Right.
throughout the.
So you don't have that, and you also have stuff that's so decentralized. Again, it being on so many different providers. You can get stuff, on YouTube. You can get stuff on Amazon Prime. You can get. I mean, there's just so many ways to deliver content these days. Um, that the content creators have to do it as cheaply as possible. Now, Tyler Perry has done an incredible job down in Atlanta because he's virtually moved a huge chunk of the industry out there.
Yes.
And they've become competitive with tax breaks and so on and so forth. So there's a lot of production being done for many shows. Connecticut has also become a huge um, center for production, with NBC and Universal moving a lot of their stuff. A lot of their shows are done out of Greenwich, Connecticut. Greenwich, is it, or it's one of the towns that are close to New York, because they've got incredible tax breaks. So talk shows and different shows like that are being done in Connecticut, or they're renting a theater in New York, doing it there, and doing all the production and everything else up in Connecticut, because you can do it all online. Um,
That's the model, and major productions that require remote locations. You make a deal with an entire country. The major photography for Game of Thrones was all done in Hungary. It wasn't even done in England, where they could have justified shooting there, given all the outdoor exteriors that they needed.
yeah,
But they got a better deal. They got a better deal in Hungary and moved all the cost of moving all the production and taking all the equipment and all the actors and all the support, all the trailers, all the hotels, all the meals. It still turned out to be millions of dollars in savings to do it there than to do it in a major production center like London.
yeah, because it probably costs you 15 cents on a dollar, 20 cents on a dollar
Right.
to produce it in Hungary as opposed to London or in Atlanta. Well, I don't know about Atlanta, but
Atlanta would have a hard
Pittsburgh does
time
a lot of.
offer if you imagine what the exteriors you require would be. Your choices are not. You have choices, but to do all the exteriors, you need an entire nation
Right,
to
and then,
choose
and
to
there's
choose from.
also a large amount of the more versatile a city is, where there's different landscapes. I mean, one of the attractions of Pittsburgh and the film industry there
It
is
can look like New York, or it can look like a small town.
right. You can make Pittsburgh look like Chicago, like New York, like old Chicago, new Chicago, old New York. I mean, it has a lot of different
Right.
scenarios, so you can turn a production, depending on what time period you're shooting in. You you have a lot of options in Pittsburgh. Plus, um the what do you call it is cheaper. The cost of production is cheaper. It's not as much as it is housing, as far as places for people to stay, hotels, so on and so forth, for crew to stay in. They're all much less expensive in a place like Pittsburgh or Cleveland, or one of those cities. And if you're shooting something that takes place in the 60s or the 70s, I mean, there's a lot of neighborhoods there that look like they're right out of 1974.
Of course, and the industry has an image in our minds that it's successful, it's glamorous, and it's desirable. So why not give them a break to keep it all in California? And California says, "Wait a minute, why should we give you a break? All you do is make television shows. All you do is bring in $20 billion a year to the state's economy. All you do is support the ancillary elements of the industry eh, to full employment for people who are working for the most part project to project. What did you ever do for us? Why should we
Built
do anything for you?" Why should we give you a tax break when we're asking other companies in California to pay the full freight?
Another point, Michael, that we live through the best of times. That what's coming in the future is not going to be pretty, and we should be glad we're not going to be here to see it because it just doesn't look pretty. Whether it's politics or movie making or whatever it might be, it just doesn't look pretty right now. So we were lucky enough to be around when the Beatles were around, when the Grateful Dead were around, when there was free love, and all of that kind of stuff. And it's all going away quickly.
One of the you mentioned the Grateful Dead, and it reminded me of Bill Walton again because there's been so many tributes to him since his death on Monday. And the gist of the comments was how much fun he was, what a outgoing fountain of energy he was, how he overcame a stutter and a speech impediment, how he overcame the chronic broken foot and then the health that prevented him from having a longer basketball career, how he turned himself into a broadcaster who was a dam break. It was the way he would answer a question. Hey, Bill, how are you feeling today? What did you have for breakfast? And he could do 20 minutes
Yeah.
with hardly taking a breath. And he was lovable because there was no restraining him. There was no editing him. There was no convincing him of anything. Oh, what a horrible day. It's raining outside. Bill Walton could do 20 minutes on why it was a fabulous day. And the people who worked with him are going to miss that more than they're going to miss the commentary on basketball.
Well, people used to be like that. I mean, it was a time when there was a lot of people that were like that. There was a positivity about people that I don't know that you see it much anymore. At least not right now. Um, a lot of people want to be positive, but I just don't know that there's, as a matter of fact, we look at somebody who's positive like that. Not you and I, but society looks at somebody who's positive like that, and they say, "What's this guy? What is this guy nuts? What?
What's
What?
wrong with him?
What is he? What is he on drugs?" Because we've become such a cynical and
Hateful society.
yeah. I didn't want to use hate, but I think it is hateful. I think it is. We value somebody who hates people, who preaches the gospel of hate, dislike, and distrust and conspiracy over the people who preach love and acceptance and all of those things. We
There's a good
seem to.
example that happened yesterday, Vinny. A good example. Richard Dreyfuss, the actor, appeared, according to Variety.com, at a symposium for the movie Jaws, where members who had worked on the film were talking about the making of the movie and the impact of the movie and how people were afraid to go into swimming pools after seeing Jaws
Right.
because of the sensation that there was a shark behind you. And Richard Dreyfuss ruined the evening by talking against women who want a place in society equal to men. He railed against the trans children who shouldn't be allowed to choose what sex they want to be when they're in school. He railed against the politics of the time. It all had nothing to do with the film Jaws. It had nothing to do with the questions he would ask. This was just he just went off. People were getting up and leaving the event, and people complained about it, and it made it to Variety.com, and he was bad mouthed by everything. And then in the comments underneath the story are people defending him and that point of view, saying, yes, that's why can't he have an opinion? Let him say what he wants about women. Let him say what he wants about trans kids. Let him say what he wants about anything. But don't ask him anything about the movie Jaws. That's the whole reason he was supposed to be there. We don't care about that. We want to know what he thinks about the dark side of his imagination. What riles Richard Dreyfuss? That's what we want to know. What's Richard Dreyfuss thinking today about the world that we live in? How close is he to President Trump and his hateful and illogical supporters? And so he went off like that, disappointing the crowd, causing a series of apologies to be made by the people who invited him. And the upshot is nobody gives a fuck what you think about these things, Richard Dreyfuss. Nobody cares. Nobody brought you there because you have an opinion about modern society. They brought you there because you were in the movie Jaws and for no other reason. And you couldn't say anything about that. You had to
Right.
tell everybody what they didn't need to know about you. And now they know more about you than they did before, and they are worse off for it. The day is darker because of it. There's Bill Walton on the sunny side and Richard Dreyfuss on the dark side. Now, I didn't know that these were the views of Richard Dreyfuss, and it's of no concern to me what he thinks about the movie Jaws or anything else. But the fact that he thought it was important enough to spew opinions at an event that was supposed to be focused on one thing, he didn't care about that. He got invited, he was going to tell them what he thought about things that were of no concern to the audience. And there's your description of what we're dealing with on a daily basis in the land of the
Well,
free.
and the home of the brave. Uh, it kind of reminds me of a of Curb Your Enthusiasm episode that I saw recently, where Larry David, Larry was invited to a birthday party for some rich industrial guy. I think he was Australian or South African, maybe. And Larry, in his Larry way, insulted people at the party and
And
acted,
one at a time, he was getting to them all.
yeah, one at a time, and especially to the guy's, I guess, girlfriend, who didn't like Larry didn't like the fact that there were certain people who called her by a certain affectionate name, but he couldn't because she said that you don't know me that well. So Larry decided to act like a bore, even more than regular, and the industrialist who was paying for him and his entourage to come out there, refused to pay him for the night. Said, basically, you ruined my party. I invited you here to mingle with people and to socialize because you're Larry
Right.
from the Larry David thing, and you came and you didn't fulfill your part of the contract, so I'm not going to pay you. You didn't do what I asked you to do. Maybe that's an example for the people who put on this symposium. Maybe you tell Richard Dreyfuss, hey, you know what, Richard? We're stopping the check. Or
You owe
even
me for
more
the trip out
so,
here.
we're going to sue you for our money back and the cost of the hotel room and everything because it's not the point of the money. It's the point that you didn't do what we employed you to do. We didn't pay you to come here and spew your opinions. We don't care what your opinion is. We paid you to come here and talk about Jaws,
And you
a
couldn't do it.
movie that you were cast in when you were a young actor and probably as much of a douchebag then as you are now, because you always
Apparently.
seem to have a bit of a douchebaggery about you. You probably drive a Tesla. Um, and so we're just not going to pay you. We're going to stop our check. We're going to tell our or if you've cashed a check already, we're going to sue you, and we're going to run up the court costs, and we're going to sue you. We're going to make you, because it's not free speech when we employ you to do something. When we employ you to come talk about the picture Jaws, we don't employ you to come here and tell us what you believe about society, or what you think about transgender children, or what you think, whether you're right or left or in the middle, or what you are. Your political opinions were not what we paid you for.
But that's what we got.
But that's what we got. And it caused us irreparable harm. Because the people who paid money to come here, or who were invited to come here, I don't know what the situation was, whether they paid money to do it or they were just invited there, were not, you didn't give them what we paid you for. As a matter of fact, you gave quite the opposite. They were maybe going out and looking for a night where they didn't have to hear about politics. They just wanted to hear about their favorite movie, or a movie that they had some kind of their psyche invested in.
And now it's not their favorite movie. Now they have a completely different opinion of it, and they don't want to see it again.
Well, they like the movie, but they think you're an idiot. So what, what benefit have you given us? We paid you a good, I don't know what they pay for that kind of thing, but I'm thinking Richard Dreyfuss doesn't go to a symposium for less than $5,000.
And you have to pay the hotel and plane and everything else.
And you're paying the hotel and the transportation and everything else. He's not paying it out of his pocket. No, I am getting, it's like this other thing with this football player. This guy from Kansas City,
the kicker for the Chiefs.
Right, who gave his opinion. Now, now it's a bit of a different situation, because he was brought there to give his opinion about things. He was brought there to give a commencement address. But that's what he believes. So maybe if you're up in arms about that, you should have checked out what this guy believes before you brought him in.
Plus, they knew what his views were, and it was a conservative Catholic university.
Yeah, but if that's what those people want to believe, well, you know what? That's what they believe. You don't have to believe it. He's not saying that everybody should believe this. This is his opinion. Now, was that the right place to spew his opinion? I don't particularly think so. But that's what they brought him in for. That was their intention. They wanted him to give people his thoughts on life lessons. That's what a commencement speech usually is. Nobody lit up Jim Carrey when he comes on and starts screaming about, you have to live your life with intention. You have to live your life like this. You like that. That's what people believe in. That's what you pay him for. When you pay Richard Dreyfuss to come to a symposium about the movie Jaws, I'm thinking that you're paying him to talk about his role in that film, and what it was like to work with Robert Shaw and Roy Scheider, and what it was. How many times did he throw up on the boat when he was out there, and how did the mechanical shark work, and how did
and all the rest?
Yeah. And what was it like to work with the talented individuals who were assembled to do that movie, the cinematographers, and and what happened after you made that movie, and you would walk down the street and people would see you and say, "I can't go into a swimming pool anymore because of your movie." That's what I want to know. I give a damn less about what you think about whatever it is. We put too much weight in what these people think. Now, yesterday, I'm sure you saw pieces of this. The Biden campaign set Robert De Niro down in front of the courthouse in Lower Manhattan.
I saw
to talk about his dislike for Donald Trump. and the way he felt about him. And they also sent the two of the officers from January 6th down with them. Fanone, and I forget the big tall guy's name.
And they're both running for office.
Well, I don't know. I know the tall guy, I forget his name now, was defeated. He was running for Congress, and he was just defeated in the primary.
Mm-hmm. I
But
didn't know that.
again, a different situation. They were sent there by the Biden campaign to give their
Just,
opinion.
just face the press. They said, "Look, we're not here because of the trial. We're here because all the media's here. Where this is a one-stop
Right.
shopping."
Yeah. If you want to get noticed, this is the place to come down and get noticed.
Right.
This is the place you want to come and hang out. If you want to be, if you want to be on the media, in the media, it's a zoo. And so they did that, and they did it perfectly. They were on everything, both the Daily News and the Post. The front page this morning is Robert De Niro. One of them said, "Raging Bull S," and I forget what the headline on the other one was. On the Post was different, but
It's not business; it's personal.
yeah, but that's De Niro's belief. Now I don't vote because Robert De Niro thinks one way or the other. Although I am glad that he's standing up and saying what he's saying because he's speaking truth. And he's speaking it from a perspective of somebody who lived in New York in the heyday of Donald Trump and knows what Trump is.
Knows what a schnooky is. Yeah.
He knows that, and he's experienced that. He's met the guy. I mean, I'm sure that that there's. I mean, I forget exactly what he said about him, but what he said about him yesterday, and at that event he was at a couple of months ago, where they tried to censor his speech. I give De Niro a lot of credit. He's a stand-up guy. But again, you're paying De Niro to give you his political opinion. Whether you agree with it or not is your option. Whether you think that a star telling you to vote for somebody is a good thing or a bad thing, I personally like to make up my own mind and not have a star. But as we know in this world today, that influence carries weight. Many people think that part of what happened with Hillary Clinton 8 years ago is that people like Springsteen never stood up for her until the last weekend. People who should have been out on the trail pounding her drum didn't do it.
And that says as much about her candidacy as it does about the support that she received.
Well, again, for everybody who wants to say, well, it's Hillary Clinton and I don't like her and this and that, well, look what the alternative was. Look at what happens for the next 4 years. So you might have had to hold your nose and vote for Hillary, just like you're going to have to hold your nose and vote for Joe Biden. But I have several friends that are, well, I'm not going to vote for Biden because he's dropping bombs and he's allowing the Israelis to drop bombs on Gaza. And I agree. I think it's a horrible thing. I think that he should call up Netanyahu and tell him if you drop another bomb, we're withdrawing all our support. And you can go out there and see what it's like to stand alone. But so does that mean you're going to vote for Trump? Or you're going to vote for Robert Kennedy? And we're going to wind up getting another 4 years of Donald Trump?
What's
Is
your
that
plan if he wins?
yeah? I mean, maybe you got tickets out of the country already, but I certainly don't want to live my final years under a Trump presidency. I don't want. I don't want to. I don't want that guy to be the last president I see. What a way to go out.
What an exit.
Yeah. I mean, it's almost inconceivable that you live through a life that included John F. Kennedy and Donald Trump having the same job. But there are many people who Democrats I'm talking about, not MAGA people. I'm talking about Democrats who say I'm not going to vote for Biden. He didn't give me I didn't get everything I wanted from his presidency.
It's like a kid at Christmas.
You little I didn't get what I wanted. He's dropping bombs on innocent people. Well, again, you know, one of my favorite lines from the series NYPD Blue is when the internal affairs guy is talking to Bobby Simone, and he looks at him and he says, "Well, you know what? Everything's a situation.
Yeah.
Truer words have never been spoken. Everything's a situation." And there's two sides to what's going on, and there's a lot of stuff that you have to sort through. And it's not simple, as we have mentioned many times on this show. But I sure would rather have Biden running things than a guy who stands in front of uh, the media and tells you that 17 million people came over the border yesterday.
And the FBI was trying to assassinate him when they went to Mar-a-Lago.
Yeah. I mean, he's certifiably nuts. And there's no way that you won't convince me of that.
He's a psychopath.
He's got a screw loose. Now, what it says about our country is these are the two best guys that we could come up with.
Well, we know
Let me
that's not
change
true.
the three best guys that we could come up with to run for president. One guy who's past his prime and two guys who are certifiably nuts.
People who are certifiable will never actually get the certification. Have you noticed? They're
They go down and get it. It
certified.
just takes a long time to get.
It's a lot of paperwork involved in certifying someone who's certifiable.
Well, first of all, you got to find somebody who's not certifiable to certify to
compare them to.
To certify it. Well, Mikey, I got to get your opinion on something.
Unlikely, but try me.
Yeah. Well, let's see if we can do it. Who is the best hitter in baseball ever? Who has the highest average in baseball according to the record books?
I don't know if anyone will agree with me on this, but I'd say Ted Williams was the best.
Not even close. As of this morning, the leading hitter in Major League history, leading hitter in baseball history, you're going to have to put that in there, is Josh Gibson.
The catcher.
With a batting average of 372 and an OPS of 1.177.
And this is the case because the stats from the Negro Leagues have been added to Major League Baseball.
Right. As of this morning, baseball is officially recognizing and integrating the Negro League statistics into its ledgers. So no longer is Ty Cobb the all-time leader in batting average at 367. It's Josh Gibson.
What's his number? 370 something?
Gibson is 372. Babe Ruth is no longer the king of OPS, which is that combined stat that they came up with years ago. Um, Gibson also leads that now 1.177 over Root's 1.164. There was a huge process to do this that included John Thorne, so many different baseball historians. But as of this morning, all of these records have changed.
Well, the record
And
hasn't
there's
changed.
arguments.
The reference using the numbers to compare one team to the other has always been there. Now it's officially put together. What about all the team records? Are they going to be put in, or is it individual records only?
Well, I guess the
Because
teams are
they
going
play
to be.
different.
I think I don't know as of this point how the team records are going to be integrated. Right now, it is, as far as I understand it, just the individual players that are being brought into the brought into the fold as far as their numbers. So you have a number of. By the way, if you really want to know about all of this, go to the Athletic and read Tyler Kepner's articles. Um, he's just done a fantastic job at.
Does he agree that, that with the numbers we have and the length of time of playing and the level of competition that this is a good idea
There is an article
and
that he has written that explains it, but he's not doing it from a perspective of whether he agrees with it or not.
just how it
He's
was
just
decided upon.
explaining it. He's
Yeah.
explaining the process. He's explaining how they what criteria they used. All of the different things that
Can he
have
explain how the
changed.
Giants? Can he explain how the San Francisco Giants have won 10 out of their last 12 games, and it all happened when they were bringing up guys from AAA to take the place of people who had been injured? Pitchers, catchers, infielders, outfielders that came into to be a dynamic part of the team and put them on a winning streak where they've won 3 in a row from the Phillies, the most dynamic offensive team in baseball. And it shows you how comparing 1 month of a baseball season to subsequent months of a baseball season shows you the opposite results. Shows you a remarkable difference in the team. Shows you
Well,
how something can change in a matter of days based on the opportunity given to a number of AAA players, and you can't take anything away from them because they made their hits, they made their runs, and they made their victories in the major leagues. But just a few weeks ago, the Giants were losing, and those players were in AAA. Now, given the opportunity, they'd come to hit and perform at a level that is remarkably different from the way they were playing at the beginning of the year. That's how fast things can change. So, you can result any. You can come to the conclusion that any comparison with the stats is an inaccurate and unfair way to compare player to player and era to era. What about Josh Gibson and Mickey Mantle? What about Josh Gibson and Willie Mays? If he has the numbers to overshadow all those careers, I'd say give him the recognition he deserves.
so you're on board with you don't have a problem with integrating all of these stats.
I just think it's an impossible job because you're not comparing the best players head to head because you can't. They didn't play against each other. And you're comparing the results based on Mel Ott and Willie Mays and Roger Maris competing against the people that they saw on a day-to-day basis, and Josh Gibson doing the same in his league. Now, if you want to integrate them and put them together for comparison purposes, That's all you've got is a comparison, but you don't have what would be called accurate results if they were playing in the same league with the same travel and the same level of competition. It's a
Yeah,
different
I mean,
it's apples and oranges to a degree.
it is. Yeah, it is tough to insert to insert these people in who let's face it, were screwed royally. There's two things that I think about this. Number one, I think it is really hard to put these stats in there and compare them because they didn't play against each other. They couldn't play against each other. That was the gentleman's agreement that was in there. So it was always hard to compare to say that this one is better than the other one.
Right.
But what I also worry about is will this eventually, and not for us because we know about it, but will this eventually take away the awareness of the Negro Leagues? Because we should never forget what happened in baseball.
I don't know how aware today's modern day baseball fan is of the Negro Leagues, how fully aware that they are.
Yeah, and hopefully they know
About
it's
what
more
that
than just a jersey that they can buy online for the Pittsburgh Crawfords or the New York Cuban Giants. Hopefully they know the history behind that jersey, although I don't think they would. I think if you stop the majority of people who are wearing a Negro Leagues jersey outside a ballpark and ask them what that jersey means, they'd have no freaking idea. It looked good on the internet, so I bought it.
Yeah.
It looked cool. Now I have um, a Harlem Globetrotters Negro League jersey. There was a team that was around only for a couple of years, then became the Seattle Steelheads. But I got the jersey because of two reasons. Number one, I had known about the history of the Harlem Globetrotters, and I'd known about the history of the Negro Leagues. If I had the money, I'd probably buy 3 or 4 more other jerseys. They're a little expensive. But before I'm going to put a jersey on like that, I'm going to know the history of the league or the history of the team. And I worry that what this will do is just at some point just assimilate those players, 25 years down the road. Not that I should worry about it, but it'll just assimilate those players into the system, and we'll lose sight of what the Negro Leagues were, number one. And number two, you know as well as I know that it's only a matter of time before we start hearing from the racists in the
Today,
crowd.
we'll hear from them today.
I'm surprised Donald Trump hadn't said something about it already.
I wonder what Richard Dreyfuss thinks about these stats being mixed with the current baseball stats.
And it's well, the one good thing is, as Kettner points out in his articles, is that there are a whole bunch of players, characters that were, the Negro League had a lot of players that were characters.
Yes.
That are worth getting to know their stories.
Satchel Paige, and to mention one.
Yeah, you got Satchel Paige, you got Dave Brown, who played for in Chicago, Chino Smith, who surprised many people about his batting average. The guy batted .451 in 1929 and had 246 at-bats. But he died 3 years after that, at 30 years old. I mean, you talk about as is quoted here by John Thorne, baseball's historian. What a great what if story! If this guy had lived, what would
Yeah.
he have been? It's a great story. The one good thing here is that a member of the New York Cubans from 1946 to 1948 gets his stats included. And while it doesn't push his career average over 300, it just gets him to 299. He goes over the 2,000 hit threshold
Hmm.
for one Minnie Minoso
Many.
of the Chicago White Sox and the St. Louis Cardinals. And the other interesting thing that's going to happen here, I think, is that Baseball Reference keeps its own official records. So Ty Cobb on Baseball Reference will still be listed atop the career batting average list. It's just going to become confusing for people.
And there's the sensation that, well, we fixed this now. All the inequity and the hatred and the segregation and the terrible existence of baseball being a segregated sport, that's all in the past now. And we've laid it to rest and it's settled, and white
No,
people can feel comfortable with these with the results.
it should never be, because we should never forget. This is part of this is a dark part of our history. No pun intended here. This is truly a blemish on sports history, American history. Again, for a group of people to be told that they can't do something solely on the fact that they were a different color than other people is it's mind blowing. And you'd like to think that by that story being out there, that we try not to ever repeat it again. Although I got to
Well,
admit
remember
that,
that element of society was forbidden for the black citizens. They couldn't play baseball, they couldn't play basketball, they couldn't play football, they couldn't play any organized sport, they couldn't go to college, they couldn't go to school, they couldn't have a substantive job because that was they couldn't serve in the military, they couldn't be a soldier, they couldn't fight, they couldn't represent their country. They were removed and forbidden from every element of society, and baseball was just part of it.
yeah, it's just interesting too. And again, like you did with the Richard Dreyfuss story earlier, I went down and looked in the comments. And again, somebody told me once, don't ever read the comments. And it's the
Don't
best
ever read the
advice I think
comments
I've ever gotten in my life.
because you're hearing the opinion of just two more people who get into an argument right after the reading the article.
Right, right. You're getting into a bizarre area, and of course, m- many of them say, "I'm not a racist," but
But
when you hear that line, "I'm not a racist," but
you've heard
it's like
everything.
you
You
may
don't
as
have to
well just
hear.
put a hood on.
You don't require to hear anymore.
Yeah, I just hope that like I say, I hope that it doesn't lessen LESSEN the lessons LESSONS that we were supposed to have learned from that experience. That 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 how wrong it was to exclude any person on the basis of solely on the basis of their color. Solely on the basis that they were not that they were black.
When Bob Cousy was playing basketball for the Boston Celtics, currently in the postseason playoffs, everybody on his team was white.
Yeah.
There were no black basketball players when Bob Cousy was the point guard for the Celtics.
Yeah. And many people think that if Boston had their way, there'd still be no black players on the Celtics.
And they think that for good reason.
So I don't know. It's really it's a very it's funny. I didn't know that I would feel this conflicted about it. I mean I'm glad that these players are getting their due. I'm glad that there are a whole bunch of new names that people can learn about, and I hope that they will do that as opposed to have the opinion or the idea, or put the idea out there that it's just another way that we're appeasing black people, or that we're, you know, reparating them for some,
But
uh,
how do you think that the individuals in the stats now would think about it? We're going to wait till you're dead. We're going to put your name in a book, and we're good, right? We're square, okay?
you'll never. How could you ever be square? How could you? I mean, let's say you found let's say Major League Baseball went out and found the survivors of all of these Negro League players, okay, and paid them each $1 million, which they probably have enough money to do. How would that square it? How would that? How do you square that? It's like the argument for reparations. If you gave every black person $1 million, would that square what the injustices that they were put under
Or remain under?
and remain under? Would it change it? I mean, yeah, you'd have a whole new bunch of people running around with a lot of money. But does it change the core of the problem? That there are people in this country who don't believe that anybody that's a different color than them are equal to them. How do you fix that? Can you even fix that?
You can't fix it with a stat book.
The only way you can fix it, I think, is by educating people. This
And
whole
time has to go
concept,
by.
this whole concept that we have that that we don't want to teach people critical race theory, and we don't want to teach people what people had done to African Americans or Chinese or other people or Irish people before, because it reflects badly on us. Well, we should be reflected badly on. It wasn't a pretty thing, no matter who you were, black or Irish or Italian or whatever nationality or ethnic group you belong to.
And that level of racism was institutionalized across the nation in every element of government and existence.
Right. It wasn't that a group in Cincinnati that ran hot dog stands didn't want to serve black people. It was that in many parts of this country, if you were black, you had to go to the back of the line. You had to eat off of chipped dishware. You had to wait for the white people to sit down before you could sit down. How do you make up for that?
Well, land of the free. It's really great if you're a white person. If your name is Dwight Eisenhower, you got it made.
Yeah. If your name is Satchel Paige, it might be a different story.
It's going to be a slightly different story, every day.
I just, I just think of that, and I. It's always hard for me to just imagine how people could live under those conditions. It's it's almost like, why did you? I mean, what did you see here that made you stay here once you could leave? What was it that you saw in this country that 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 made you look around and say, "I want to stay here. I don't want to get on a boat and go back to Africa, or go somewhere else where I would be freer, where I would be seen as more of an equal." And there weren't places that were that far away where you could do that. You could go to Jamaica, you could go to Canada, you could go to Mexico and be seen as an equal.
A number of jazz artists went to Paris, went to France, went to
Yeah,
Scandinavia, and made new lives.
yeah. I mean, it's how did you? What did you have inside of you that said, "I'm gonna this place is so good that I'm gonna stay here and tough this out and deal with this."
Well, when you're born somewhere, that's your home, and there's no way to alter the feelings you have of affection for where you were born, for your home, for where you grew up.
Yeah, I think it's one of the great questions that we face in this country and that we're gonna face.
That we
Um,
face every day. Yeah.
yeah, we face it every day. How could you look at that and study that and know that and feel comfortable?
Well, Major League Baseball hasn't solved anything here. What they've done is opened old wounds. If they had left it the way it was unfair. Now they've changed it, but it's still unfair. It's not an accurate comparison, and it never will be. The sorrowful part about this, the dark part, is that all those great players never had a chance to compete at the level that they were,
Right,
where their gift made them belong, where they could play center field for any team in baseball, where they could be a shortstop for any team in baseball, a
right.
pitcher for any team that needed a pitcher. And that was denied them by the sport that they loved to play. And it kept them separate and apart from the society that baseball was supposed to represent: mom, apple pie, and baseball. America's game, the pastime for the nation, except for those who aren't welcome in their own country.
Right, except if you're a different color, then it's not your game.
It's not a good game for you.
But
Not a good
we're
game.
so good that we're going to form our own league
We're
and
so
show
good.
you how good we are.
And then there's the white side. We're so special that we won't allow people better than us to play the game that is based on talent. Some talent, not all talent. You're too talented to play this game. It's not a good game for you. I got a guy who's not as good as you at shortstop, but he's going to play for me because he's not you. And the reason
Right,
you're not going to
because
play
he's
for me is
white, because his skin
because
color.
you got a problem. I don't have a problem. I'm paying all these players to play for me. Your problem is I'm not ever going to be paying you. You're not playing with us. We're playing a game.
No,
You can't play
those are the times that certain people in this country would like to see us go back to.
in a New York minute, in a Staten Island minute.
Yeah, those are the that's what people would like to see us. Certain people, some people would like to see us return to that time when your skin color or your status or your financial condition determined who you were. Um, Whether you were born here or not determined who you were. That's what some people would like to see. I don't know. Sometimes it makes you just wonder, man. Sometimes it's time to find that cabin by the lake, Michael. Oh man. All right. What are your Giants doing? You talked about them somewhat before. Where are they
They
now?
won. They won last night in the 10th inning, 1-0 over the Phillies,
Right.
and that was their 10th win in 12 games. They finally
And
turned it around.
your uh your uh your Mets decided that losing one game a day, anybody can do that. So
And
they decided that let's lose 2 to the Dodgers today.
the Dodgers were okay with that.
Dodgers seem to be on board with that. Said we're okay. As a matter of fact, they'll do it again today. Uh, coming up
I
soon, the
think this
Dodgers.
think the story of this year across the leagues is injuries. There's just been so many injuries, and guys are going. We lost our first baseman, Lamont Wade Jr., for 4 weeks. Our starting pitcher Blake Snell had an oblique injury, came back and had a baby, and so got the paternity leave. So he's only pitched one game in the last several months.
I'm sorry. That
You
shouldn't
can't.
make me laugh, but
It's
I
just
don't know.
it's an indication. Our center fielder is out for the rest of the season with an injury, trying to catch a home run on the fence. Injured his shoulder. The surgery will take him till next year to recover from. That's what I'm dealing with. I'm dealing with a Tim that's winning better now with this AAA lineup than it was with all the people that they signed in the off season.
Meanwhile, the owner of the Mets, Steve Cohen, had this idea that he wanted to take that parking lot in Citi Field where Shea Stadium used to sit and build a casino on it. So
he's
you'd be able.
He's diversifying.
Yes, you'd be able to just go get on a 7 train. There used to be, if you wanted to lose all your money, you either had to find an illegal crap game, or
go OTB.
You had to go down to Atlantic City or go to OTB. And now they just want you to be able to jump on the 7 train and go to Shea State to Citi Field, or as I like to call it, Debits Field, and lose your money quickly to Steve Cohen.
You could have a beer and a hot dog. That'll cost you $30 or
yeah,
more.
Have your $30 beer and a hot dog. Yeah, it's just it's amazing.
The amazing Mets.
While they're trying to build they're trying to build a casino in Coney Island.
Why don't they just put a double deck on Yankee Stadium and play 2 games at once?
Exactly. So the state senator who is in that district that encompasses my old neighborhood of Jackson Heights has said
ain't gonna happen.
It ain't happening.
Forget about it.
These are designated parklands because Shea Stadium is really built in Flushing Meadow Park. It is, or actually, Citi Field is built in Flushing Meadow Park, and those are parklands, and you can't have a casino in a park. And Senator Ramos has said, ain't happening. I'm not going to I'm going to fight it as much as I can fight it. And Cohen has said, well, we'll see about that.
I want to know what Richard Dreyfuss thinks.
I don't know, Michael. Why don't you call him and ask him?
I don't want to. It's not going to be a short call, and I don't want to spend 30 minutes on the phone.
Do you have his number?
Of course, but I'm not calling.
Then give him a holler. See what he's got. Invite him on the show on Friday. We're going to have a freaky, fractious Friday,
like we always do.
Coming up in 2 days. So why don't you call him and see if he'll come on and spew some of his right-wing babble. Matter of fact, we could have like a big triumvirate. We could have Richard Dreyfuss. We could have Rob Schneider.
Yep.
We got James Woods.
Can we get Marjorie Taylor Greene?
Who?
Marjorie Taylor Greene. Can we get her?
Well, I want to stay away from elected officials. Besides, I saw that picture she posted for her birthday in a bikini.
I did not.
You didn't see that, huh?
No.
What time is your next meal?
It varies.
I'll send it over to you.
But there's one coming up. There's always one coming up.
You'll have no appetite.
I'm not surprised. What does Richard Dreyfuss think of that? He
probably wants to hit it. Hit it good.
I will see you Friday for a fractious event, and I look forward to it very much, Vinnie.
Yes, Michael, see you Friday. Thank you so much, everybody, for listening. And we will see you Friday if the Lord's willing and the creek don't rise. Mikey, peace, love, casinos, and peace, love, and Manischewitz, baby.
How come Robert Moses didn't build casinos? We didn't need highways in and out of town. We needed casinos in Queens.
Put a couple of good casinos up. You wouldn't need anything. People could just go there and lose their money.
I'll see you Friday, Vinnie.
All right, see you Friday, Mikey. Take care. Thank you all for listening too. We always appreciate it, big time.
What a wine.